God looked around the garden and found an empty place. He looked down upon the earth and saw your tired face. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. God's garden must be beautiful, for he only takes the best. He knew that you were suffering. He knew that you would never get well on earth again. He saw the road was getting rough and the hills were hard to climb. So he closed your weary eyelids and whispered, "Peace be thine." It broke my heart to lose you, but you didn't go alone, for part of me went with you the day God called you home. Until we meet again, your loving husband, Jim. And each morning I read, and each evening I read this to Mary Lou.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Again we pray for the repose of the soul of the handmaiden of God, Catherine, departed this life, and that she may be pardoned all her sins, both voluntary and involuntary.
My name is James Owens. I was born and bred in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
I'll tell you, my name is Albert Spindler. My wife, Kathy, and I were born and raised in Gary, Indiana.
Myself and 4 or 5 of my friends, and Mary Lou and 4 or 5 of her girlfriends would go dancing every Saturday night. You meet a person and you have the same basic likes and dislikes as time goes on. We finally decided that we would get engaged and get married.
After we met, and we did do some dating, as you might expect, and we did get married and lived happily ever after.
One of the things we liked to go was to see these musicals down the Forest Theater. Went on vacations down in Naples, Florida. We enjoyed the sunset and sunrise down there every day. And we enjoyed more of a quiet life. She woke me up during the night, this is about 3 o'clock in the morning, and said, "Could you help me get to the bathroom?" I said, "Sure." And it felt like her feet were glued to the floor. Right away, I knew there was some kind of a problem. So I called our neighbor next door, and he called 911. But sadly, there's a time period between when you have your stroke and get medication to help it. That time period had evolved. So she didn't get the medication anyway, and didn't have, her stroke paralyzed her left side.
I noticed a slight change. Sometimes she wouldn't seem to recognize me. Things gradually, very slowly deteriorated a little bit. One night I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't find Catherine anywhere in the house. I looked in the yard for her, she wasn't anywhere there. And this was the middle of the night. So I got in the car and started driving around in the streets in Cinnaminson looking for Catherine. And I finally found her walking towards Highway 130, if you're familiar with the geography there. And went up, and she didn't recognize me. In fact, she tried to get away because she thought I was somebody else, I guess. So that was the the time that I found that I had a problem, a real problem. And it wasn't too many long after that I contacted the Masonic home, as they call it then, and it's now called the Masonic Village. But we made arrangements then for Catherine to move into the Masonic home.
At first, we had help come in at home, and that didn't particularly work out. So we had to come here to the Masonic Village. At the present time, they were building apartments, and I put my name on a list for an apartment in the terrace level, and Mary Lou was in the medical section. I would have breakfast in my apartment and then come up to our medical section and spend 12 hours a day there, and then go back to my apartment at night.
I was able to travel back and forth from our house in Cinnaminson to the Masonic home for quite a few years, a couple years anyhow, 2 or 3 times a week at least, maybe more. And initially she moved around quite a bit. Then they would have chair exercises where they would all sit around in chairs in a big room there in that area. I participated in some of those. I happened to be there when they were going on, so I figured, well, what? Might as well, you know. It didn't hurt me anyhow.
I usually arrived at her room at 7 o'clock in the morning, and when I did this day, the nurse on duty said that they had to inform me that Mary Lou had passed away during the night. When a certain person knows that they're passing away, that they don't want to let go themselves.
Well, at the end there was little or no communication at all, period. Not even recognition in her eyes, which for years I could see that she recognized me occasionally. I didn't want her to be in the ground cold, so I made arrangements for a crypt and a mausoleum at the cemetery in near Cinnaminson there. They have her name and the date, and then they got my name and one date and an open date. So we'll be together in the end, and in at least a warm place for Catherine.
Well, Acacia has a very good reputation, and without it, it would definitely be more of a struggle for anyone in that position. And I'm sure that anyone in that position is very grateful for Acacia's help in a situation like that.
I felt that I maybe knew what I was doing and where I was going and everything that was going to happen, but I found that I didn't, and Acacia supplied the answers. Life is not all fireworks and rides on in the carnivals and that sort of thing, but a lot of it is just plain living together, and if you get along and enjoy each other's company, even when there isn't a lot of things to be excited about, then you're in good shape. If you've lived with someone for that many years, all of a sudden you feel as something's missing, you know. And even to this day, today, on occasion, I hear a noise at somewhere else in the apartment, and my first reaction is, "Oh, I wonder what oh wait, that can't be Catherine." And so it's not out of my mind completely yet.
You have to recall the happy parts of your life, not the sad part of losing your wife. So the main thing that I understood was you also have to keep busy. So that I try and do. I walk every day, morning and night. I have more friends here at the home than you could ever realize. And it all helps me pass my time away. Everybody in this life has problems, and you have to work your problems out. And when you do, it may favor one or the other, but it always works out in the end. So the main thing is to be compatible, never go to bed at night angry, and the next morning you won't regret it.
After we were married, one day Catherine said to me, "I sat right behind you in study hall and you didn't pay any attention to me." And I of course was a senior and she was a lowly sophomore, so that explained that.
Well, I have a funny story, but you won't believe it. In the city of Burlington, there was one undertaker, Slack. Her father was a licensed undertaker that worked for Slack. When we decided to tell her parents that we wanted to get engaged and get married, they thought it was a wonderful idea. And her father said, "This is between you and I just want to tell you one thing. We're very happy what's going to take place." He says, "But I just want to tell you, you're going to go up the aisle one way or the other, which means you're going to walk up or get carried up."